today we're going to make ourselves a little penny stove. A little alcohol burning penny stove. Really easy to make. Doesn't cost anything. And as a matter of fact, it only costs probably about a penny. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. This one's already been used quite a bit, but they work very, very well. And we use a 99% alcohol. But you can also use plenty of other fluids that are available out there on a commercial basis. But this 99% that's available at pharmaceuticals works really well. I prefer to use beer cans because they come with beer in them. And that's pretty much the reason. All you're going to need is a little drill. Now I should have probably got a bigger drill. You know, this may not be able to punch through that aluminum, but we're going to try. And a straight pin to make your burners. Okay. One thing nice about these little Hams cans is that they come already at a pretty decent marking, and it's a pretty decent size, so that works pretty well for us. Okay, so it's really easy to get started on this. Just a good old pair of cheap scissors. These probably came from Dollar Tree. Make sure you don't cut yourself. Take a little bite of this first. Get some of that out of there. What we want to do is make sure that we do two different sizes. I'll show you that in just a moment. We're going to make one slightly larger than the other. Slightly taller, I should say. Okay. Easily done. Clean up that edge a little bit. And we have our two halves cut. Not halves. We have our two pieces cut. One's going to be inserted over the other one. You want the slightly taller one, as you can see here by the line that's been cut, to be your bottom piece. So when they ride together, eventually this one slides down and doesn't come down too far. It actually stops in natural place. So you want to make sure that the inside one has got no little debris or anything that's going to stop it from sliding in. Okay, so take a little sandpaper. I happen to have some coarse drywall paper here. And you're going to do the same thing on the outer one on the inside. And you're going to try to ream this out just a little bit. Also helps to take, once you get this cleaned up and ready to go, take your leftover beer can or soda can if you prefer, and take and ream it out a little bit until it starts to widen out. Just keep doing this until you get yourself a little wider of a can and one inserts over the other. Occasionally you may have to put a couple crinkles in the very beginning of the top of this just to narrow it up a bit so that it slides in there together. Okay? Okay, it's taken a minute. I had to crinkle this down to get it to fit. Okay, it takes a little bit to work on it. Be patient. When you get done, and I'm not done yet, you want to sand off all those little rough edges from the scissors that you cut before you come to steel wool it. I steel wool them when I'm done because it just kind of looks a little bit prettier. And then you want to make sure that that's as square as you can get it. And you want this to be an airtight seal. And it takes a minute to get that thing down there. That's about as far as it's going to go. Now I don't use the can to actually sit something upon. We'll show you in a minute how we stand our pots on these. And again, once you get it down, the worst is going to go. Cut off any abrasive edges or anything that might catch in your backpack or in your bug out kit or whatever you want to use this in. And they really, really work great. Alright, now that we have these two pieces together, it's kind of cleaned up so we can handle it. We can always clean it up better when it's done. And also I want to let you know that you take a third can and you'll be using this for the top, for a little close the top and a little piece to seal it when it's all completed. You just want to take, again, another can, bevel this out, work it out until it gets a little bit wider, and it just sits on your can nice and neat and pretty. Now, once you've gotten this thing down, I've been using the 32-hole pattern. You start on one side, go to your opposite side. Okay? Turn it 90 degrees. So one side, you're going to cut this down into quarters until you get it completely marked off. Okay? Recentering every time. Mark it down a quarter so you have a good mark to punch your holes in for the gases to escape and for it to become a stove. Don't worry about if it's not perfect. It really doesn't make any difference. The stove doesn't seem to care very much. And again, now we're going to break that down again. All the way around so that we have a mark. Okay, nice and simple. Now we're going to take that straight pin. And we're going to punch holes. Okay? On every one. Nice and simple. Some people use finish nails. I prefer to use this. I believe it makes just a fine hole. In fact, I don't even ream them out anymore. I've made 3 of these and they seem to work very, very well. Some people really ream them out or make them a little bit bigger. I think that they burn too much alcohol. So I just punch them thinly with a thumbtack. Get all the way around. Okay. Alright, now I just want to show you real quick what I've done with my own wood burning stove. I made a little kit for my backpack, so I use wood as well. All kind of fits together, kind of nice and neat. This is a little shield that I made, and I'll show you how to make that. It's very easy. We take a larger, I think this is a tomato can, I'm not sure the size, but play around with the cans you got. And if you see this, I've drilled a bunch of massive holes in the bottom. I put nails in here to act as a grate for the wood burning stove. It fits in here, it all fits together, kind of nice and neat. I took some metal flashing, I used some 6-inch metal aluminum flashing and cut it to fit. And that's because of my wood stove. You can put all kinds of little embers in there. You put your fire starter in there. You can fire this up really easy because of your wood stove. Because that fits in there, it rests on here nicely. So you got a comfortable place to put your cook pot. It also works very good with the stove to act as a windshield and a place to keep your pot up off the bottom. The only thing you have to remember is give it enough air holes near the top to be able to escape underneath your pan. And it's still going to get sooty. There's not much I can do about that. Although if you come up with a better design, please let me know. And make sure you got plenty of air holes at the bottom so you can breathe, so you're not encapsulating those gases in there. And I used a rivet gun just to pop rivet that. I got that at Harbor Freight for a couple bucks. There's nothing here that costs very much money at all. Even the bags that I use to store all this stuff in, you can get 3 different sizes of these in a kit, in a collection kit at Walmart for about $4. Now here's the stove that we just made. I went ahead and I made a smaller hole than I did on the original one. The original one I used about a 1/4 inch drill bit. This one I went to a 3/16, maybe a little bit smaller. And it kind of cleaned up kind of nice, but you could probably do a little bit better job. I don't think my backpack cares, and I definitely don't think that the food that you're cooking on it cares whether or not you polished it up or even cleaned it in any way. One more thing I'd like to show you about this lid, which is a nice way to be able to put the thing out really quickly and let it cool down before you put the lid back on it and put it back inside. You can actually still store a little bit of alcohol in here if you need to. It has a dual purpose. Not only is it a snuffing lid, but you can also use this to measure out your alcohol. This amount of alcohol that I can fill this with will run for about 15 minutes, which is more than you need to boil most foods, or if you want to make a mountain house meal, something like that. Also, one more thing. Polish this up as best you can, then take a little beeswax and clean it up and polish it up really good with a very light cloth, and you'll have a nice parabolic dish that you can take and reflect back into the sun. If you're in an emergency and you don't have any matches, you can actually start a fire with this. So it has, a couple purposes on that. So I just wanted to show you that before we get started. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to light it up. Okay, folks? Alright, so we have our completed stove here. Again, we've drilled this time a 3/16 hole instead of the 1/4 inch hole that's in the other one. I think it's going to work a little bit better. We're going to try it now and find out. We try to use a measured amount of alcohol. But, you have to play with it and determine how long you need to cook, and this thing will hold quite a bit more than you ever planned to use probably in any situation. Again, This little lid holds probably about 12 to 15 minutes with cook time. Save a little bit, spill it around the outside a little bit because you've got to heat it up. And you might want to use, I would suggest, that you use some sort of a receptacle to catch this in, a small cook pan, something like that, and it keeps the flames around it, works a little bit better. The idea of this is simply just to heat the stove up so that it starts to generate the gases. You can already see the gases coming, the alcohol coming through the stove here. And we're going to let that burn up for a minute and let it just, again, heat up. If I pour just a little too much around the outside, but that's okay. It doesn't hurt anything. You want to use some sort of a catch basin for it, especially in a tent situation, something like that. We'll let that see if it's going to heat up enough, and it looks like it's going to just fine. And there we go. So there's your 1 penny stove. Again, I have a little bit too much alcohol still out here, but it's 100% or 99% alcohol. It will burn off completely. So, I also use, just about a lot of stuff burn off, don't we? There we go. And this is where the air shield comes in kind of nice. Again, you can use a soup can if you can find a large enough one, whatever suits your needs. Adapt any of this idea for your own. I use this because you can use this to put a pan right on it, and it holds the pan nicely to cook, so you can use a large one. Now I'm getting some soot here, obviously because I don't have enough air. But again, that's adjustable, but it'll still cook just fine, and it's no different than running any kind of a small wood stove. You're going to get soot on your cookware anyway. So there we are. And again, you want to use, I use 99% alcohol. There's very many alcohols that are available for your alcohol cook stoves. You can find them at Cabela's, you can find them at Big Five, anywhere where you do your shopping for your camping supplies. And that pretty much completes our little penny stove, except that in California, it actually costs a couple pennies. Up here in Oregon, it's actually 5 cents a can, so we spent 15 cents tonight. And there we are. That's the completion of your 1 penny stove. My name is Ken Gentry, and I am Mother Earth Underground. Thank you.